Okay, so your two homework assignments are find min and pattern matching. We'll start with the first one. Okay, create a VBA form with the following items. 3 text boxes. Name the first one text num1, text num2, and text num3. The captions, would just be number 1, number 2, and number 3, respectively. A button with the caption find minimum, and the name of command find min. So this time you do have to use specific names for your controls. Write all the code in the click handler of command find min, which is basically what we use buttons for. The code finds the minimum of the 3 numbers and use a message box to report the number in the form of the minimum number is XYZ, and XYZ in italic is to be substituted by the actual minimum number. Okay. That's the behavior of the program. And I also made a video clip to demonstrate what the program is supposed to do. You can try that out. Yep.
I tried that just earlier and the computer it doesn't work.
It does not work?
Yeah, it didn't work in here either.
Oh.
This video is
Okay, I'll re-record that. Okay, you should use exactly one conditional statement, assignment statements, and any number of assignment statements, and a message box statement. Read the notes before attempting this assignment. You will find the notes to be useful because it is also closely related. Turn in your file via the upload interface before the due date. So that's the usual way of turning your homework assignment. Now, but before you move in and actually try to write the code and make it work, you might want to read the rest of this first, because one part of this says since when is 9 greater than 100? Well, it depends on. Because 9 is after 1. So when you're comparing these two as strings, then 9 is greater than 100. But when you interpret these as numbers, then 9 is not greater than 100. So there's an explanation here, which I think I also explained in the video clip. Is that right? I think so. I think I explained that in the video clip in terms of comparisons. Why sometimes a number seems to be less than the other number, but in the comparison it would actually report it to be greater than. So that means when you do this using string comparison, it's not going to work. So if we are not going to do string comparison, what are we going to do? What do you think? Well, here is the answer. There's a function called val. So what you need to do is to say val, and then you have to put something in text or in string value inside the parentheses after val. Okay? So do you guys know what you need to put into this part here? Inside the parentheses? Kind of have an idea of what is appropriate inside here? Okay. So text to be replaced by a variable or property that has the text representation of a number. So of all the things that we have on the form, okay, we have 3 text boxes and 1 button, right? What do you think should go into the parentheses? That's just a question that I want you guys to answer for yourselves, because that's one important part of this homework assignment. And you can also assume the numbers are valid, okay? In other words, no one is going to put in tag into the text box and try to compare that as a number. So you can assume, all the input or the text boxes have valid numbers to begin with, so you don't have to do any type of error checking in that case. And this part we have talked about, how to concatenate strings. Basically we use the ampersand symbol to concatenate components of a string. So in this case, this really spells out exactly what you need to do, except this part here, minimum, has to be a variable that you have to use in order to print out the actual answer. Okay. So are there any questions about this homework assignment other than the val part, which is a little bit tricky?
So it's similar to what you showed us before?
Very similar, except in this case you have to find a minimum of 3 things instead of 2. Because I think the notes, has, an example to show you how to find the maximum of 2 or the minimum of 2. This time we have 3. Okay. Now how do you confirm something is the largest of 3 things? you need two comparisons, right? If you have x, y, and z, and you want to confirm that x is the largest, you can say, x has to be greater than or equal to y, and x has to be greater than or equal to z. So you have to do something similar to that in this particular program.
You want it in the same line? Would you go-
Yes, they have to be on the same line unless you use the underscore for continuation on the next line.
Oh.
Yep. In this one, you might need to consider, wrapping around because otherwise that line can get a little bit long. VBA does not have a problem with a long line. It's just harder for you to read when your line wraps around. Okay, so that's the first homework assignment. The second one uses pattern matching. So here's the second one, which is pattern matching. This assignment lets you practice your skill to match patterns. Particularly, we'll write the code to guess the type of the content of a text box. The form is going to have only two things, fairly simple stuff. One is a text box, the other one is a button. The text box has to have a caption of mystery, and the name of the text box has to be text mystery. And the other one is, the button has to have a caption of guess exclamation point. The name has to be command guess. So in both homework assignments, you have to use specific names for your objects on the screen in the form. This is the behavior of your program. Let the end user type some text in the text box. When the button is clicked, the logic should make a guess of what kind of data is entered in the text box. Okay? So you want to match, the zip code. A zip code has two particular patterns to match. One is the basic zip code, which is just 5 digits. The other one is the zip+4 format, which is the zip code and then a dash and then 4 more additional digits. Do we know how to do that? I was hoping that you won't say that. You wouldn't say that. It's okay. It's fine. We just did that. Okay. So as an example, we did that already. We also want to match a Canadian postal code. Okay. Canadian postal code is a little bit more, interesting. The notes actually has talked about that too. Okay. The notes actually has an example to illustrate, what is the pattern you should expect when you encounter a Canadian postal code. I want your program to also match phone numbers. So in this case, I wanted to match either this form with parentheses or this form here without using parentheses. So you do need 2 likes to make it work. Okay, you need 2 likes to make this work as well, because 1 like can only match this part, and you need another like to match this part. The 2 likes need to be linked together using a logical operator. A logical operator is a not, a or an and. So you kind of have to decide which one you want to use in this case.
So you don't want it like in the example you had where you specified the differentiation between those two message boxes?
Yeah, in either case, you just tell me it's a U.S. zip code.
So you just say US.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to make it even more detailed, like this is zip code, this is zip+4, be my guest, that's fine too. So you can kind of reuse my code in the a phone number, and the last one is a social security number, which starts with 3 digits, a dash, 2 more digits, a dash, and then 4 more digits. So all of these, only have numbers and dashes and parentheses. And other than that, I don't think this one is particularly tricky. It may be a little bit long because you have all these cases to test, all these cases to check. But other than that, this one really should not be too complicated.
Now, if none of those match, they put in something weird.
Well, since I did not specify anything here, you can just not print anything. Or if you want to make provide a confirmation, you can do what I did in my program. Specify a single else at the very end, and just say that we don't know what it is, or it does not match any pattern that you're looking for. Okay. Are there any questions about both homework assignments? Kind of okay? Okay. Now, this is our third class. It's the last third class. So next week will be the second last and then we have one more class after next class. And that will be the end of the semester. If we look up the syllabus, we still have a few items to cover, but I think we'll be okay. We have enough time to do it. Okay. So this is where we are. We're in topic 5 right now. We talked about conditions, Boolean expressions, and also pattern matching. The next one we'll talk about subroutines, and then we can talk about loops and record sets. This one is kind of, we can talk about it or we can, not talk about it. How to debug, programs. Basically, how to use a debugger to help you debug the program. That's what it is. But this is a big one, loops and record sets. We are not going to have an exam 2 or final exam for this class, so I will only use homework assignments to determine your grade, which makes my job easier and also makes your job easier as a student too. Yep.
Did you say there'd be some bigger projects too?
That was originally my plan, but since we lost, 2, Mondays, I kind of decided that maybe we just do regular homework. We do have 2 homeworks, for this week. So I think that's pretty good, for assessment purposes. Okay. Are there any questions about the homework that we are supposed to do for this week?
You said there's notes, right? There's more detailed notes.
Yeah, the links here, if you click on this link here, conditions and conditional statements, and also pattern matching in VBA, that should include all the details that you need to do the homework, especially when you combine that with the recorded lecture, of today. So that combining, those things together, you should have all the information that you need. Because, I'm not expecting people to write down all the sample code that I wrote, but since it's all going to be recorded, I think you guys can just look it up on YouTube and, kind of go through that again. Any other questions? So next time, please read ahead of me, so go ahead and read writing and using subroutines in VBA, as well as loops and record sets. Loops and record sets is a little bit more specific to Access, because the concept of a record set is specific to a database type of program. But I think that also kind of illustrates, why VBA is useful, because you can do certain things that will be pretty hard to do using just queries in Access. But if you use, VBA to do a part of it, sometimes, certain logic can be done a little bit easier that way. Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? Okay. If you guys have any specific topic that you want me to kind of go over, please let me know. I can see if I can cover, just, a little bit more than, what is already here. Any other questions? No? Are you guys doing okay so far with the concepts and the programs? Okay, very good. Now this class is a 1-unit class. Okay, remember this is a 1-unit class, and we are not only covering some of the programming concepts, we're also covering some of the application concepts in terms of navigating inside Access and stuff like that. So we are not doing a whole lot with programming concepts at all with this class. If you think that you might need to know more about programming, and you find the VBA program is kind of interesting, it's kind of useful, but you want to take it to the next level, you might want to consider taking cisp372, which is also called Algorithm Design / Problem Solving. That's a beginning programming class. It's a 3-unit class. It is considered a beginning programming class. But in that class, we'll talk about conditions, conditional statements, loops, subroutines, and parameters of subroutines, and so on and so forth in a lot more details. Okay? In other words, after cisp300, we'll know a lot more about programming than at the end of this particular class. This class is just a kind of like an exposure class, so that what you can do, kind of what you can do with programming. It doesn't show you nearly all the possibilities of what you can do when you know how to when you learn how to program with a computer. Okay. So I'm saying that just so that some of you can do some planning when you sign up for classes for fall 2011. Any questions? No questions? All right. Well, that's the end of today's class. When are we supposed to end for this class? Is it 8:55? Oh, right on time. I thought it's 9:05 or something, so I was thinking, oh no, I ran out of stuff to talk about. Okay. All right. So that's the end of today's class. I will upload the video, as soon as possible, possibly right now.